This tutorial on Qalipu application affidavits has been prepared for the Friends of Qalipu Applicants group page on Facebook. It was not prepared by either the Qalipu Band or Aboriginal Affairs. The information contained here is simply intended to aid applicants in wading through the process of preparing the required affidavits. The documents referenced here and available for further verification include the 2008 Agreement, the June 2013 Supplemental Agreement Update of July 2013, the June 2013 Directive to the Enrollment Committee, the November letters to all applicants, and the November 2013 5-page update included with those November letters. These documents can be found on either the Aboriginal Affairs website or the Qalipu website. Now, the first question you may have is who needs to provide affidavits? We can look at 3 documents to find the answer to this question. First, we can look at the letter you received from Aboriginal Affairs. Secondly, we can look on page 3 of the inserted pages that were included with your letter, where it states that if you were not residing in a designated community on September 22, 2011, you still need to demonstrate group acceptance. And third, we can look at the Chief's message of November 18th found on the Qalipu website. In his message, Chief Shepherd gives 4 scenarios. If you fall under either scenario 2 or scenario 3, you still need to demonstrate group acceptance. So let's sum this up. If you received a letter from Aboriginal Affairs stating that your application will be assessed and you lived outside one of the designated communities more than 20 kilometers out on September 22, 2011, you will need to provide at least 2 affidavits to support your claim of group acceptance. Now, if you're still watching, that means you've determined that you do need affidavits. The next question then is who does these affidavits for you? For this, we're going to look at page 4 of the insert that came with your November letter. Affidavits must be written by residents of a Mi'kmaq community on the island of Newfoundland. Affidavits must be sworn before a Commissioner of Oaths, Notary Public, or other officer authorized to take oaths in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, what should be included in these affidavits? There are 2 main categories here. Number 1, the details of the nature and purpose of your visits and/or communication with Mi'kmaq communities of Newfoundland. And number 2, information about the religious, ceremonial, traditional, or cultural activities practiced by you in one of the locations of the Mi'kmaq group of Indians of Newfoundland. So you want to cover both of these categories. The first one, visits and communication. The second one, activities that you've participated in. If you'd like more detail on this, you can look at the Directive to the Enrollment Committee, sections 11 to 18, but I'm going to go over some examples here for you in just a moment. Now, before you even get to the affidavits, what are some things you should be doing? The number 1 thing is to gather all of your possible documents. If you're having trouble reminding yourself of when you did certain things, you can do a search of your email to remind yourself, or you can ask family members to recall dates of visits. And then after you've done that, you can determine who might be a good choice for doing an affidavit for you. So in that first category of visits and communication, you'll want something from this category. So you're going to look for airplane tickets, travel itineraries, credit card bills, phone bills, or original dated letters, emails, or other written communications. In that second category of activities that you have participated in, they've broken this down into 3 subheadings. It doesn't mean that you have to have something from each of these 3 headings. You have to have information from this general category of activities that you've participated in. In the first subheading, religious, ceremonial, cultural, this can include Mi'kmaq language training, St. Anne's Day celebrations, Flat Bay powwow or other powwows, St. George's Mi'kmaq dancers, Mi'kmaq drummers, choir, National Aboriginal Day, Sweat Lodge sunrise ceremony, and Elders Feast. Under the subheading of traditional activities, this can include producing Mi'kmaq crafts, trapping, hunting, and fishing in historical areas, gathering berries as food supplement for Mi'kmaq group of Indians of Newfoundland, and gathering bark, plants, or roots for making traditional medicines or cosmetics. The third subheading under this is actions to gain or advance knowledge of the Mi'kmaq way of life. This may include registration in a course on Mi'kmaq culture, traditions, communications with Mi'kmaq members addressing culture and traditions, communications supporting recognition of the Newfoundland Mi'kmaq under the Indian Act, attendance at meetings such as the FNI or the KMA, subscription to publications from those same groups, maintaining a residence in a Mi'kmaq community, or attending community events such as talking circles. Now, once you've figured out what documentation you might be able to get your hands on, what happens next? The next thing is then to find people in a Mi'kmaq community who can attest to the same things that you're showing in your documentation. These people can include anything that they know about you, but an affidavit statement alone is not enough evidence. You need to have something to corroborate it. So then you're going to ask them if they will sign an affidavit for you. You need a minimum of 2 affidavits, and that means by 2 different people, but there is no limit on how many you can include. So if you know 5 people who can help with information, get 5 affidavits. If you know 4 people, get 4. Now I'm going to give you a very generic scenario involving an applicant named John Doe and a person doing an affidavit for him named Jane Smith. Let's just say that John lives in Ontario and Jane lives in Stephenville, Newfoundland. John has determined what kinds of documents he can find, and so he calls Jane and asks her to do an affidavit for him. In their conversation, he reminds her of the dates or the content of their discussions. He may even forward old emails to her to jog her memory. And then Jane agrees that she will do an affidavit for John. The next thing that has to happen is to get your hands on a blank affidavit template. John would do this and give it to Jane, or Jane would do this on her own. This is an example, and a sample of this can be found on the Friends of Qalipu Applicants group page on Facebook. And this is what it looks like with the statement typed up. Now, you do not have to type it. You can handwrite it if you wish, but because they want fairly detailed information, typing is probably your best bet. And these other blanks can be filled in by hand, like this. But it is really important that the people who do your affidavits do not sign at the bottom until they are being witnessed by the Commissioner of Oaths. The Commissioner must witness them actually signing the document. Now let's talk about these required elements. Here Jane states her name, then she states where she resides, and she states how she knows John. In terms of what she's including in this particular scenario, she verifies 3 visits by John, 2004, 2006, 2008. She verifies phone calls, and she verifies emails. This covers visits and communication. But she also verifies Mi'kmaq topics, including John's participation in the Blueberry Festival and in powwows. This covers the activities that he's participated in. So based on Jane's affidavit, what documentation should John be providing to corroborate what Jane has said? As I said before, he can include travel receipts, he can include phone receipts, copies of emails, even photographs. So what about John's second affidavit? The second affidavit can contain much of the same information as the first, but it should not be a word-for-word copy of what is written in the first affidavit. Also, the second affidavit very well may contain lots of different information from the affidavit provided by the first person. So what you've seen here is an example of how you might go about getting your affidavits together. And here are just a couple reminders. Number 1, 2 affidavits is the minimum. You should really be trying to get as many as you can. And the other thing that's most important is that you should be getting this organized now, contacting people and asking them to do your affidavits. The original signed affidavits need to reach you before you send off your application. And the deadline for postmarking that is January 31st, 2014. If you have any other questions, please visit the Friends of Qalipu Applicants group page for sample documents, sample scenarios, and interaction with other Qalipu applicants.